Hi, welcome to the Reaching Your Full Potential Online Tech Summit, where top experts share their secret tips to stand out from the crowd and to use technology to be uber successful. Today, I have Ruthie Burd and Greg Beukes from The Lunch Lady. Ruthie Burd believed that most busy parents did not enjoy packing school lunches when she started The Lunch Lady in 1993. And she was right. Today, the lunch lady prepares and delivers thousands of meals to kids in hundreds of schools and childcare centers all across Canada through a network of dedicated franchise partners who love supporting healthier food environments in their own communities. Wanting to do more, Ruthie began the Lunch Lady Foundation in 2018 to encourage more collaboration between the private and public partners to make it easy for everyone to have more access to healthy and affordable meals. And Greg Beukes is the architect behind all this. He leads the IT team and director of at Lunch Lady, and where the software and hardware service that has been built serves healthy lunches to children across 1,300 schools and daycare centers, again through this system that he's created. Thank you so much for joining, and welcome to this Tech Summit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that was a pretty heavy bio. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, what you do, and yeah, tell us a little bit more.
Well, I guess I can start. Of course, right now we're not exactly serving a lot of schools, childcare and centers across Canada because we're in unprecedented times, but it does give us more time to focus on the job at hand, which is releasing our new network. When the Lunch Lady started, there was no technology of any sort. There were not many clients to begin with in the very beginning, and I didn't have any great love of cooking. And really, technology was just starting to come into its own in 1993. I think by 1995, I had a cell phone that was the size of a shoebox still, right? And when I first was on a computer, you used to have dial-up, and so you couldn't be on your telephone and you're on the internet at the same time. Things have changed a lot in 25 years, not just for the Lunch Lady, but technology in general. And so when I used to track how many orders I did it on a piece of paper with a pencil, with the little strokes 4 and then
Right.
the cross out for 5. And of course, I made a lot of mistakes, human error being what it is. Eventually, I met with a programmer, and he designed kind of a program for us, kind of built on Access. And it operated on a disk that you had to insert into a computer. And every year, once we started to franchise in the early 21st century after Y2K, people would need to get a new disk. And it was very hard to share information or to help people understand what was going on. It was very, very challenging. And so after that, the gentleman who had done the design for the disk for one computer moved to a company that was starting to do network things. And so we ended up working with them to network the Lunch Lady. And like anything else, what seemed to be awesome in 2006, definitely not awesome now. And you discover the limitations of what you've designed only when you put it into practice. And so the long and short is that a couple of years later, Greg started to work for us. And since then, he has been sort of using what would you call duct tape in a tech term? Sort of, and tricking our system to do things it was never intended to do, to allow us to expand our business offerings and do more. And at the same time now has been working on rebuilding a new system for us. So that's my story.
That's amazing.
I've learned a lot.
That's amazing.
I've learned a lot in the last several years.
Absolutely. That's pretty amazing how you started in 1993 and where you are today. That's pretty, it's pretty good. That's amazing. Yeah,
well, we can always do better, eh?
Yeah.
Continuous improvement, right?
That's
can always,
true.
always be doing better. Always looking to how you can do better.
Absolutely, 100% for sure. So, based on this and kind of like where you are, and you kind of alluded to behind the journey you went and to where you are today, maybe you can expand a little bit more on that, kind of like some of your struggles and your growth within the system, I guess, too, and your business as well.
I mean, just generally speaking, the company, or are we talking
In terms of the system, in terms of the system that you created, and kind of like how you kind of alluded to how you started with your Excel and you went to your sorry, access to your system, and kind of some of the struggles you faced to kind of build that. You did say it is proprietary system, right? So maybe expand a little more on that and how you kind of got there, and I guess why not? I guess we mentioned with offline, we talked about people say why not go with the off the box solution. So again, you can maybe address that as well too. Yeah.
Well, I won't be the best one to talk about why
so
we can't
maybe,
use the off-the-shelf solution. That'll be Greg. But in a way, the Lunch Lady was the very first delivery business ever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we made meals and we delivered them to kids at school. And we still do that. Obviously, you need to be able to keep all the schools separate, all the students separate, make sure the right student gets the right lunch at the right time. And I didn't know that much about it, but I knew that we had to have it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just persistence that pays off. And you always forget where you come from or what you've been through, because you're always tend to be focused on what's going to be next.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had a lot of help. I didn't do anything by myself. I still get lots of help from partners, from our franchise partners, from our head office team, particularly Greg. So I think I've had, like anyone in business, I've had many setbacks that you aren't expecting. There are many times you have to reinvent yourself. Look at what we're going through right now.
Right.
So it's that all over again. But certainly in the changes, the system that Greg found when he first came to us and where we are now, he is the best person to talk about it.
Sounds good.
Greg?
Okay, so yeah, I started with a Lunch Lady in 2009. And at the time, the existing system we use today was already in place. And for me, the first challenge was to figure out how it did things and why it did it like that. And unfortunately, it wasn't documented at the time. So basically, the way to learn it was just to run it and step through the code and figure out why it did certain things. It is one of the challenges when you're working with other people's code, etc., is you don't have the original thought process at all. Particularly if they do not comment the code. So learning that was difficult. And of course, technology changes all the time. I mean, you get things that happen like upgrades to Microsoft runs updates, etc., which breaks things, or they deprecate something, and from a security perspective, it's not good to stay with the old, so you have to switch over to the new to their new operating system or new version of SQL Server or whatever the case might be. And every time that happens, it presents new challenges in as much as your old code may not be compatible at all. A case in point was the change for SSL to be required, the TLS requirement for it. Certain older versions of SQL Server doesn't handle it very well. So making it do something it was never meant to do is always a challenge. One thing we did find in the old system was it had reached basically as far as we could, as Ruthie likes to say, trick it into doing things it was never meant to do. It has reached its limits on what can be done. Not because software, as we know, I mean, software doesn't suffer of wear and tear or anything like that. It's just the code was written in such a way that changing it is challenging. Change something here and something elsewhere doesn't work anymore properly because the code is a bit of what programmers like to call spaghetti code. And then moving on from there onto the new system, I think the biggest challenge is, as some people will know, is to make sure that when you finish writing the project, that you have written something that is usable by your customers. Now, for me, my customers are not only the people who purchase from the Lunch Lady. It is the staff who use the system at head office. It is the franchisees. They're all my customers. And I have to make sure when this is done, that it works for all of them. It doesn't help I just wrote to one small group and the other group's going to be upset and not like using it. So the challenge is, understanding what will work for everybody. And in that, I'm lucky in as much as I had direct access to a kitchen, a franchise, to be able to see how it operated internally, and understand some of the challenges that happen at ground level for them. So yeah, basically it comes down to, you need to, for a new system, you need to gain a good understanding and do some good systems analysis prior to, just jumping in there and start writing stuff.
No, it makes sense for sure. So, based on what you kind of talked about and you kind of highlighted a little bit of what, for example, commenting and, not being there, some of the challenges. So, if you look back and you kind of see the system that was there and what you're doing right now, what are some of the mistakes you wish that you could have avoided?
Well, first and foremost, I have I don't know what it's called. I have kind of a complex that I feel I need to do everything myself. And it is actually a problem, in as much as I get so tied up in it that I don't ask for help. I don't turn around and go like, hey, this is too much for me. We need to get somebody else, or can you please take care of this? And it's taken me a few years to get over that. And still today I have a challenge. I'll have a phone call from somebody at head office or a kitchen or whatever the case might be. They'll ask me something. I'm like, oh, I'll take care of it. And then I'm like, nope. You know what? Here is, can you do this? Can you just take care of it? Because I know they can. They've done it before. I don't have to be the one to do it. And it's still a challenge for me. I still have this thing that, okay, I'll do it because I know how to do it. And, I don't want you to struggle or whatever the case might be. But that in the long term, that really doesn't benefit the company. Yeah, it benefits that person at that time in that they don't have to do it. But it's not about that. It's about the long term as well. And as much as I didn't continue doing the other stuff I was supposed to do because I'm busy doing something like that somebody else could have done. So yeah, that asking for help and communication, just make sure you keep the channels of communication open, that everybody knows where you are and what you need to do and what they need to do to have everything work smoothly. And I will freely admit those two are still an issue for me. I've always been a person who worked on my own, and I'm good at it, but this is not a small project I'm working on right now. So, getting help is critical, and letting people know where you are, what's happening, as opposed to they're like, is something happening?
It's true. So,
well,
this is, go ahead.
We're used to collaboration, right? In an office setting, we're all used to being together and seeing each other and talking together and sharing ideas. But everyone in the tech industry, you're the original work from home guys in many, right? So today, this is just like a usual time for many people in tech, because they're just continuing doing what they're doing. So you can see why when you're working in isolation, now from all of us working from home, you can see that there is a risk of feeling kind of cut off and doing your own thing, and just focusing on what you're doing and not keeping engaged with everyone. You can see that that's how that can happen. I can understand that. But of course, now we're in the age of Zoom like this, right? So we can feel some sense of connection, which is always a positive thing.
That's true. Definitely true. So, based on and what you just kind of talked about, and you kind of highlighted at the beginning how you started this early, but how did you know you had the right idea? How did you know that this was the idea you kind of wanted to go forward?
You mean the lunch thing?
The lunch lady,
The lunch thing or the network thing? The lunch lady thing.
The lunch lady and the network thing. Like, that's still like, we kind of look at today, food delivery is like normal. Like, you just, just open it up and do it. But how'd you think of that was the right idea at that time?
I came across it by accident, actually.
Okay.
One of our boys has autism. I needed to find a career that would allow me to earn some income for the family and take him to speech therapy in the afternoon. And so it had to be something that happened in the morning and finished by the end of lunch. And I didn't cook. Like, I was pretty bleak as a cook at that time in the kitchen. But it fit the timeline. I didn't know anything much about it, but I'd lived in Jamaica manufacturing window blinds. I didn't know anything about that when I started that either. So you can learn a skill. So I had a need. Listen, but it wasn't a quick start. It took me 2 years to get into the first school. So in the meantime, I'd make lunch for meals for seniors or people in office buildings, but there was never enough of them, right? So reaching that break even was a big challenge. I think anyone who starts a new concept or anyone in business, starting something new, you need to really persist. You need to accept that not every day is going to be a good day. In fact, a lot of days are not going to be good days. And you have to kind of believe in what you're doing, I think. And sometimes it's not easy to do that. Even now, there are times when I feel really challenged with what I'm doing. But it's that commitment, or that a lot of people use the word passion. Maybe, but I think it's more a promise you make to yourself. What you do to strive. So with the automation or the network, people used to pay us by cash and check, right? All the time, like cash and check. Credit cards wasn't as popular in the beginning. And so what would happen, we'd send out all these menus by paper, and then in they'd come, and then we had these disk thingies, right? In the computer, and then you'd input it and you'd apply the payment and everything else. And things would happen. Checks would get lost, checks would bounce, the cash wouldn't be right, you'd miscount the cash, all things could happen. So we really wanted to go and have a credit card. We didn't want to hold the credit cards because then that's a security risk, right, as well. So we wanted a central place where we could put all our data in. We could assess how things were going, how sales were going by different location, how people were doing, where all the money could go in. So it was redistributed to everybody else and was a much cleaner and more efficient system. It'd be easier for us to get data, easier for the kitchens to get their information. And it would prevent some of those problems from happening. And it would also be on a remote place, so that if somebody lost their computer died, something happened, or they forgot to load the disk and they were had the wrong stuff for the new year round, and all that would be taken care of, because that takes a lot of time when stuff goes south. So you're always looking to minimize what can happen when stuff goes south, right? And I think it'd be really great for Greg to mention in our business, because we're managing kids with allergies, everybody's ordering different things delivered on different days. They have, schools have very different needs. They have different fundraising requirements, everything else. Why we can't just get something off the box? Because everybody always says, I've got a cousin, he could make a website in a week. And it's true, you can put a shopping cart on anything and sell anything. That's the reality. But really, our business that's seen is like this, like an iceberg on the top. And then what makes it work or tick or what's important is all like underneath. It's like the bottom part of the iceberg all under the water. So yeah, I don't, it's like flying. I don't really understand it, but I love hearing about it.
It's pretty good. No, it's good. Greg, you want to kind of elaborate more on that part of it, about the system aspect of it?
Yes, you asked at the beginning, like, how do you know if you have the right idea in terms of a system, right? Do you ever know it's the right idea? The key is the same as Ruthie. When she started the business, she didn't know it was the right idea, but it was an idea, right? And the success of the idea came down to Ruthie's persistence, right? The fact that she did not give up, the fact that even in difficult times she kept going, and it's similar. One of the lucky things we have in IT is that if you've written it right, you can always make changes. You can always adapt, right? And I think that's the key thing. It's not about that, was this the right idea? Because from our business perspective, yes, this was absolutely the right idea. Can we have bought one off the shelf? I suppose you could have bought a system off the shelf, but what you would have ended up with was a system that you then needed to modify so heavily that you'd have to have might as well have written it from the ground up in the first place, because even in the modified state, it probably wouldn't be what you wanted. Our business model is unique in many ways, that it doesn't quite exist. And yes, we did actually investigate it. We had a discussion with somebody who has a similar system from the United States. And even though they had a system, we also realized that a lot of what they were doing, we would have to change. That was one of the things. Wanting to obtain the system from it, I needed to also obtain the source code, because it wasn't going to do exactly everything we wanted the way we wanted it to work. So yeah, you could have, but we probably would have ended up the same timeline anyway, and probably spent more money, because you know, the licensing fees and all of that stuff, and particularly if you're buying something with licensing fees that include access to the source code, that normally costs a lot more. And so timeline wouldn't have changed, cost wouldn't have changed. So was this the right decision? Yeah, I believe it was the right idea, you know. But with any idea, if you want it to be the right idea, you've got to follow through, and even through the tough times, push through until your idea comes to absolute fruition.
No, it's true. You're right, 100%. And that leads to my other question that I have is, you know, with anything that you build, there's always going to be adversity and doubt, right? So how do you handle that? I
was going to say lots of alcohol, but no. You know, there's adversity and doubt and everything. And that's where one of those things comes from, and ask for help, right? Sometimes the help is not in the form of, yeah, hey, Ruthie, could you figure out why this segment of code is not doing what it's doing, supposed to be doing? No, it's about just a sounding board, somebody to talk to, a shoulder to cry on, you know. And I think adversity and doubts are often handled by talking to someone, somebody who could be there to support you, whether it be a spouse, a friend, a coworker, a colleague, something like that. And I will say that in the couple of years that we've been working on the system, there have been many people who've been that sounding board, that shoulder to cry on. You know, my wife has particularly been a very strong supporter for me during this whole thing. You know, and some colleagues I have, etc., that, you know, just talk to and just get it off my shoulders. And Ruthie will attest to the fact that even her, I will phone her and we'll talk about something. And even though she has no idea what you're talking about, just the fact of talking to her more often than not solves the problem for me, because my head just thinks about it differently while I'm explaining it. So, you know, yeah.
And I learned something. I learned something. I like it too.
So just make sure you make use of your support base. Even when you have doubts, there's always somebody who will support you.
No, it's true. That's 100% true. Yeah, you're right. You know, we're kind of getting near the end here. And if you were to share one tip today to anybody today listening to, and that tip, you know, would translate to success, what would that tip be?
I can say because so many individuals that have tech companies are also entrepreneurs in business for themselves. And that would be to stay in touch with your customers, right? Focus on getting new customers, but never forget the ones you have. And also find out, as Greg says, find people who can support you, because the entrepreneur's life is not an easy life. It looks very easy to somebody looking in, but there's so many little pieces of it and daily challenges that you really need to be sure that you have, surround yourself with people that can support you in what you're trying to achieve, as opposed to undermine your confidence in yourself, right? So those would be my best tips, as you know, and just have a sense of humor and be stubborn.
Good. No, definitely, for sure.
What are yours, Greg?
Yeah, you know, for me, it's like I said before, it's the whole persistence thing. I think it was Winston Churchill who said, you know, when you're going through hell, keep on going, because you never know when the next step is the step out. You know, just keep going.
Yeah, because there'll always be challenges to you, right? There'll always be things that challenge you, and that you have to make a decision. You know, there's an expression in Jamaica, the only way around is through. And it's kind of like Winston Churchill's, I guess, right? But the thing is, you will be faced with difficult things always. And you will be challenged always. And you just have to make a decision that how you're going to react and how you're going to face the things that befall you. And a lot of it is, hi Brent, this is my son Brent.
Hi.
Yes, we're going to put the floor back in, honey. I'm on a Zoom call right now. I can't tell you right now. Can I tell you soon? I'll tell you in 5 minutes, okay? Could you leave the room, honey? I'm on a call. Thank you very much. I promise I'll tell you in 5 minutes. The reason for the lunch lady, right? Okay. So the thing I would say is that you have to just decide to forge ahead no matter what is facing you, and have the courage to it. And there's this expression, you know, is that when you're managing other people, and let's face it, you can only control not other people's behavior, you can only control your own reaction. They say people don't remember what you say, and they don't remember often what you did, but they always remember how you made them feel. And I think just kind of keep in your mind that how you make others feel is a really important thing, no matter what you're facing, and always be true to that vision you have of yourself, because we're bigger than who we are in a business. We all have that personal balance sheet that will outlive whatever else we do.
That's so true. No, so true. No, definitely valuable tips. Is there anything else you want to add before we finish? No? Okay. No, I really want to thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. It was a great conversation now, and the fact that you are one of the first ones to be on there online. It's a huge success and something to look upon, to look onto and get inspiration from. So
advantage and disadvantage being the first, right?
Well, it's true. But yeah, it's great, you know. And you've been around for a while too, which is great. It shows your success that you've had as well too. So that's amazing. And you've pivoted as well, and I can see that you have mentioned that before too. So that's amazing as well. And that's really, so wish you best luck on your new system as well. And thank you again for taking the time to do this as well.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shayla.